What's up everybody, my name is Brock Bailey. Today I want to go over another tutorial on some color grading techniques with the new Canon EOS R. Sorry I've been missing, I've just been really busy with life. I've started a couple new businesses that I'll get into later down the road. Got some new cameras, got the new Canon EOS R camera. I switched completely over from the Panasonic line. I originally had the Panasonic S1. It was a great camera, don't get me wrong, but the reason why I got into the Canon EOS R system is because I really wanted that autofocus and that really good out-of-camera look that Canon provides. One of my highest viewed weddings on my YouTube channel, I've had a lot of people ask questions on how do I color grade C-log footage, how did you make your image look so good, and basically it all comes down to color grading. My in-camera settings are basic. I think I did +1 on sharpening. Other than that, everything else remains the same. If you guys have any more questions, leave them in the comments and I'll make another video, but I kind of want to just go over my basic color grading process for each wedding that I do. I kind of have the same look for every single one, and this is one of the most viewed and a lot of questions came from this video, so I wanted to go into it in more depth. So without further ado, let's dive in and let's start editing this bad boy. Alright, so I'm editing in Final Cut Pro, but this whole process applies to whatever editing system or anything you're in. So I'm going to completely do everything in Final Cut Pro. There's a reason why I don't use Premiere. I can go into that in a different video, but I really like Final Cut Pro and DaVinci Resolve. It really all depends on the wedding and how fast I'm trying to do the turnaround. If I want to get something done fast, I'm going to do Final Cut because I can breeze through it. DaVinci, if something was in harsh lighting conditions or stuff where I really need to focus on color more, I will go to DaVinci. But I enjoy Final Cut, and that's what we're going to do now. So I just imported a few clips right here. Some indoor clips, outdoor clips, just clips, all in C-Log, and I will kind of want to walk you through the process and kind of how I do everything. Right now I'm in this editing window right here. I'm going to start here and then I'm going to work over the change workspaces to my color profile. My color workspace, first thing I do, everyone asks me where I start. So first thing I do is I am going to grab an adjustment layer and I am going to drag it over all my footage. That's the very first thing I do. I get my LUTs dialed in first. So on that adjustment layer, like I said, I am going to add a LUT. And I've been using the same LUT for a long time, so it's one of my favorite, Timbre by White and Revery. I've been using their LUTs for a while now because it just makes everything look like my style. So this is the one I use. I use Timbre 4. So as you can tell, it kind of did something, but not too much. So this is where the color grading comes in. So let's start with this clip right here. So as you can see, with the Timbre LUT, without. So I added my Timbre LUT. Now we're going to switch workspaces up here, and we're going to go to Color and Effects. Get everything nice and big. So yeah, basically I go here. First thing I always do is open up my color wheels. And I do everything on the RGB parade over here. This is where I pretty much lie right here. And I'll always bring down my shadows till they reach about 0. Always bring up my highlights till they reach about 100 or so. Give it some color saturation pop right here. And I also add a curve. This one doesn't need too much. Basically, I just add a nice little basic S-curve. It just makes everything pop. And I kind of like how this greenery pops back here, so I'll go into my saturation, hue saturation curves. I'll grab whatever's back there, and then I'll just start brightening that up back there. So you can see, very easy. In this white balance, I shot in shade white balance when I was on set. So it's perfect white balance. And yeah, I mean, look how quick I did that. I did that in like 15 seconds. So this is without everything, and this is without. and everything just pops. They just all pop, and I just really like the way this looks. So that's that. So remember, adjustment layer on top. I don't do anything with adjustment layer. I'm basically just putting my LUT on top of the adjustment layer, and I pretty much keep it at 100%. A lot of people don't do that, but I do, because I think in C-Log you need that 100% for it to really pop. So let's just move to the next clip. So this is when the groom was walking with his buddies. There's some nice sunlight coming through the back, a little back edge. Once again, I'm over here, RGB Parade. I'm going to bring down the shadows. I'm going to bring up the highlights. Bring up the saturation. And to me, the midtones are a little bit hot, so I'm going to bring down the midtones a slight tad. I'm going to raise the shadows a tiny flash. Put up the highlights a little bit. And same thing, I'm going to take my tool here. I'm going to brighten up the greens a little bit, just get a little extra pop. And yeah, this also was very quick and easy to grade. So before, after, gives it a nice touch all the way around. It even brings out some of the oranges in the atmosphere as well. So yeah, next, pretty much same thing here. RGB Parade, bring it down around 0-ish. You don't always have to bring it down to 0. I just make sure it looks good. So then I'm gonna bring my highlights up, saturation up, hue versus sag. We're gonna get some green action here. Get my curves. This one I'm gonna do an S curves because it's already exposed perfectly. So I just give it a nice little pop. So this is before and after the curve if you want to see it. So see how it just gives, it's kind of dull, and then it just kind of gives it a nice little punch, a little contrast punch here. Once again, easy. Same thing here. I'm not going to really do this one because it's basically the same as the other. I can literally just copy. I can copy and paste everything right here. I'm going to pretty much. So it looks a little bit cooler here actually. So now the wheels, I'll go to my temperature, just warm it up a slight bit, bring down this a little bit, bring down the shadows a little bit more, bring up the highlights. And yeah, that looks pretty darn good too. So this is before and after. No, it's basically just copy and pasting. I do a lot of copy and pasting. If it's in the same situation, I usually just copy and paste. So let's do an outdoor scene. Same thing, guys. So we're gonna bring the shadows down. We're gonna raise the highlights, shadows down a little bit more. Add a lot of saturation. I like adding a lot of saturation outdoors. I like giving it a nice kick with these green cactuses. Bring these up a little bit. So it's a little cool to me again. So I am going to go to my temperature slider and I'm gonna just give it some warmth here. And stuff like this in outdoor and portrait sessions, I really like to get into the curves because it gives everything a nice contrasty pop here. So a little S curve. There. There you go, before and after. Before, after. Look at that. It's crazy. Arizona's beautiful. This one would be a good shot to look at. Really focus on detail in the faces here. So I usually like to bring in the curves as well, but we're gonna go with the same process, guys. We're gonna drop down the shadows, increase the highlights, get some saturation in their skin tones, maybe a little bit of warmth here. I always like adding warmth. It makes everything look so more creamy. And then curve. We're gonna do this. No, it's too much contrast. Just boosting it there, right there. Check it. Totally personal preference, but this kind of looks good to me here. It just pops. Look at their skin, just pop. It just looks so beautiful. And basically it's the same thing here. I'm not going to go over this one. So let's do some inside shots here. Same thing. Bring it down here. Bring it up here. Oh yeah. Also here I shot in a shaded white balance too. because the sun was kind of down and I wanted more warmth in the actual atmosphere, so I shot in a shade white balance, so I think that's like 7500. Here I shot everything daylight because we have some nice daylight still coming in on her face. So when I'm setting up my brides, I make sure they're always in good lighting, so I'll always bring them next to a window or a door or something where they can get as much light as possible hitting their face. And as you can tell, everything is popping here. Shadows, that's the highlights. I'll add a little bit of saturation. That's what's good about Canon. Like, Canon's so good, like, at all their colors, and their saturation is already on point, so I basically have to add a slight little detail of saturation. And then same thing here, I'll give it a nice pop here with that, and look at that. Before, after. Nice punch there. Same thing here, we're gonna open it up. Guys, this is easy stuff here, I'm telling you. I do the same thing every time. If you can always just put your LUT on top as an adjustment layer and then you start working from your LUT, that's how you do things around here. I'm sure I'll have a lot of haters because I'm not an expert pro in the color department, but I feel like my films look good enough to keep doing this technique. But same here, I just give it a nice pop. And this is going to be a pretty good change, so before, after. Look at that pop right there. Sorry, it's loading. The heck. Freaking Final Cut. I talked so good about Final Cut and it just backed on me. Alright, but yeah, there you go. So let's talk about this one. This one's kind of blown out behind him because I had to expose for her, and then obviously I had to overexpose the background in order for me to expose for her. So it was just a tricky situation. So here, we're just going to bring down the shadows. It's because it's rendering that high quality Canon footage. Bring up the highlights a tiny bit. I even bring up the midtones a tiny bit so they can pop more from the, and then curves here. I always do a curve, and since I want to mess with their midtones, I kind of just boost the midtones here, and then I'll lower the highlights to kind of bring some detail back in the background, even though that's impossible. Did I add saturation? No, so let's add some saturation. And I'm gonna bring out these foliage back here. See, this is like no saturation in the back with the leaves. If I bring it up, it gives it some more, just some more depth. So, yeah. So here's before, after, just a nice punch. So this one right here, I shot shade, but he was kind of like in the sun, so it was really warm. So the very first thing I like to do here is I'll add another LUT before I do anything. And this is a LUT that I found online that I will probably put it in the link in the comments, but I'll probably forget, so just mention it to me and I'll make sure I give it to you guys. But these are great white balance LUTs. So it's just, so I shot this in 6500 in cloudy white balance, and then I want to bring it to regular daylight, so sunny. So I can do I do down here the 6500 to 5500. It just gives it a more blue and more natural looking feel. So if you just look before and after, see how warm it is, and then it gives it a nice decent start to the grade. So then I'll just go back and to do my normal stuff. I'll do some shadows. I'll increase the highlights because his face is a little dark. Bring some saturation back. Add a nice punch here to his face like that. And it's a little spotty. You ideally don't want to have these situations, but sometimes you just can't control that. So before, after. Before, after. See that daylight punch it just gives? It's just beautiful. Same thing here. This looks, I added this, I forgot to take this off to show you guys, but basically the same thing. I added the 6500 to 5500 LUT. See how it just gives it a nice cooler tone. And then I will go down here. Looks like I already did this, but basically, yeah, same thing. Shadows, highlights of the saturation, a little bit of curves, a little bit more to her face, so her face pops like that. And before, after, look at that change right there. So orange, and then you come in here and just does amazing things. So yeah, now let's do some inside stuff now. So I have the LUT. The LUT in darker situations does some good stuff already. So it already gives it a nice overall feel. So now I'm really just going in here and just fine tuning it. Adding some shadows, adding some highlight fill, and just like that, it already pops. That's all I'm doing, guys. For inside footage, it's easy because you're basically just fixing a little bit of shadow, a little bit of highlight, and calling it a day. Here, same thing. Then coming to the guys, this was a dark reception room, so I cross light the dance floor with my Canon TV Bolson 55 watts, and they're amazing. Let me tell you, they're cheap, amazing, and I highly recommend it. I'm gonna do a video on that one of these days as well, just because there's so much you can get from it. It's like high looking footage, like high quality looking footage with such small lights. So yeah, so basically, yeah, boom, add some shadow, add some highlight, add some saturation, done. Pop. So you can see one of my Bolson CV lights back here. I was just hitting, and then we have another one over here. Actually, no, we have another one over here. There's people right here, it's not enough, so we kind of cross lit that way. And basically, I'm just going for my shadows again, use my highlights, add some saturation. Before, after. And this one's cool too. This is a good detailed shot. I was shooting like through people. If you can always shoot through people, candles, any of that kind of stuff, to just really give like a sense of like emotion and feel to the video, do it. I always challenge people to just test new looks. So here I like to really give it a nice kick. There it is. And yeah, I'll show you kind of one more thing. I'll show you a toast. See, where's the dad's toast? Because he had the best lighting, because he actually listened. This one right here. So let's bring this over. So we'll start from scratch on this one. So this also looks orange. So what I'm going to try to do again is I'm going to try to add a white balance LUT. Let's try this one. See how it just gives it a nice day, because these are daylight white balance lights. So it was a little hot. It was a little orange for some reason. So I just did a 6500 to 5500, and now it starts me off with a nice grade. So now I'll just go in shadows, highlights. I like more dramatic looking shots. So I kind of like to have his face really pop. So in order to do that, you want to bring the shadows down so then his face just really glows. Like so. Just gives it a nice pop. And then maybe I might even do some curve action here. That's if you want to get real crazy, but like curves make everything just pop. Just know that if you can get good with curves, that's like a whole another tutorial in itself, but you can literally change each part of the color curve on this, all the way from the shadows down this range to midtones to highlights. You can do some flat looks, some dark looks, some fat looks, some highlight roll off looks, just a bunch of different stuff. So if you guys want, I can do like I said, I'm not a perfect colorist, so I do what I can to make stuff look good. There's people that will probably say otherwise, but I just created all this in what, 5 minutes, if that, and it makes for a great film. So that's kind of my process. I still haven't changed anything. It's still the same concept. I always drag my adjustment layer on top. From there, I'll mess with my shadows and highlights, and then after my shadows and highlights, I'll mess with my curves to see if it needs another like more punchier look, and then I'll see what colors are in the background. I'll take my hue for saturation and I'll just boost those. So I color grade films in like a couple hours, because I'll just bam, 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 and once you'll get the process, everything will start to look good. But it all starts in the field. You got to make sure you shoot good, and make sure it's in good lighting. Make sure people are in good lighting. Make sure you have the correct white balance. Saves you in the end. If you're shooting daylight, anything in daylight, you want to be at 5500. Anything in shade, I usually be, or just on your guys' white balance in the camera, there'll be a shade icon. Do shade and shade, sunny, and outdoor like lighting situations. So indoor, same thing. If it's super tungsten, super orange lights everywhere, make sure you shoot tungsten. And those are always tough. Like I said, anything that's in tungsten lights, I'll make sure I try to put them in daylight and then turn off all the tungsten lights, because that's usually what I do unless I can't. So the first thing I'll always do is find a door or window and put them in front of it every single time, and then shoot daylight. But sometimes there's no doors, or there's no windows or doors, so then I have to shoot tungsten and it looks not great. But you can always bring lighting, but then that's just too much. There's just too much to do on a wedding day to focus about all the things. So yeah, I hope this tutorial helped. Feel free to leave your questions in the comments again. I'll do my best to answer them in a different video. But these are kind of like the main questions, kind of how I color grade C-Log, what's my best settings for C-Log, all that kind of stuff. Like I said, it's just C-Log plus one on sharpening, everything else remains the same. Yeah, started 2 new businesses that I'll talk about in my next couple videos, new wedding businesses. So yeah, life is just chaotic right now, but I'm finally at a aligned point where I can just focus on YouTube and other kind of stuff to help you guys. But yeah, that's the tutorial. I hope you guys like it. Until next time, I'll see you guys soon. Peace out.